She was shamed and sent away hungry. Then a cowboy whispered, "You'll eat like a queen tonight." The road into town stretched long and dusty, cutting through fields that had turned golden under the late afternoon sun. A tired young woman walked slowly along its edge, carrying a small, worn bag that seemed heavier than it should have been. Her name was Elena, and though she tried to keep her head high, her shoulders showed the weight she carried inside. Each step felt uncertain, not because she did not know where she was going, but because she was not sure she was welcome anywhere anymore. Elena had once believed that small towns were kind places where people looked after each other. She had grown up hearing stories about neighbors helping neighbors, about doors left open and meals shared without question. But the reality she faced now felt very different. Whispers had reached this town before she did, and they painted a picture of her that she barely recognized. She paused near the edge of the main street and looked around quietly. The town was simple but lively. Wooden storefronts stood side by side, each with faded signs swinging gently in the breeze. People moved between shops, laughing and talking, carrying baskets filled with fresh bread and vegetables. The smell of cooking drifted through the air, warm and inviting. For a moment, Elena allowed herself to imagine being part of that scene, walking freely among them, smiling without fear. But when she stepped forward, she felt eyes turned toward her. Conversation softened. Some faces showed curiosity, others showed caution. She kept walking, pretending not to notice, though the tension wrapped around her like a heavy coat. She had arrived hoping to find work. She needed a chance more than anything, a chance to start over without being defined by mistakes or misunderstandings from her past. The first shop she entered was a small bakery. The bell above the door rang softly as she pushed it open. Warm air filled her lungs, and for a moment she felt comfort. The woman behind the counter greeted her politely at first, but the moment Elena mentioned her name, the woman's expression changed. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by hesitation. She listened quietly as Elena asked about work, but when she replied, her voice was distant. "We're not hiring," she said quickly, even though a sign in the window clearly said otherwise. Elena nodded slowly and thanked her anyway. She stepped back outside, trying to ignore the sting in her chest. It was not the first rejection she had faced, and she suspected it would not be the last. She continued down the street, stopping at 2 more places, each time the pattern repeated. Polite smiles faded into uncomfortable silence. Questions were avoided. Doors closed gently but firmly. By the time the sun dipped lower in the sky, Elena felt exhaustion settle deep into her bones. She had not eaten properly in days, and the hunger sharpened every emotion she tried to control. She told herself to stay strong. She had survived worse moments before. Near the center of town, colorful decorations hung between buildings. Long tables were set up, covered with food and flowers. People gathered around, celebrating the harvest. Laughter echoed through the air, and music played softly from somewhere nearby. Elena stopped at a distance, watching quietly. The sight of so much food made her stomach ache. She hesitated, unsure whether she should approach. The event seemed public, and she told herself there was no harm in asking politely. Perhaps someone would offer her a small plate. She walked slowly toward the tables, trying to appear calm and respectful. A few people glanced at her but said nothing. She reached the edge of the table and looked at the dishes laid out. Fresh bread, roasted vegetables, warm soup. The smell alone felt overwhelming. As she reached for a plate, a sharp voice stopped her. "What do you think you're doing?" Elena froze. A woman stood nearby, her arms crossed, eyes filled with disapproval. Conversations around them began to quiet as people turned to watch.
"I was just hoping," Elena began softly, but her voice faded under the weight of attention.
"This is for the community," the woman said firmly. "You shouldn't be here." The words landed harder than any shout. Elena felt heat rise to her face. She tried to explain that she meant no harm, that she was simply hungry, but the woman shook her head. "We know who you are," she said, loud enough for others to hear. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some people looked away uncomfortable, Others watched silently, saying nothing. Elena lowered her hands slowly. Shame pressed against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. She wanted to disappear, to vanish from their sight. Without arguing, she stepped back and turned away. The laughter resumed behind her, but it sounded distant now, as though coming from another world. She walked without direction, leaving the lights and music behind. The sky had begun to darken, turning soft shades of orange and purple. Outside the town limits, the air felt quieter. She followed a dirt path until she reached an old fence line near an open field. There she sat down, wrapping her arms around herself. For a long time she stared at the ground, trying to hold back tears. She told herself she should keep moving, find another place, try again tomorrow. But her body felt too tired, and her heart felt heavier than she wanted to admit. The memory of being turned away replayed in her mind again and again. In the distance, the sound of hooves broke the silence. Elena looked up slowly as a rider approached along the path. The figure moved at a steady pace, unhurried and calm. As he came closer, she saw a man dressed in simple ranch clothes, his posture relaxed but strong. The cowboy slowed his horse when he noticed her sitting by the fence. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he stopped a short distance away, giving her space. His name was Daniel, though she did not know that yet. He had seen her earlier in town and noticed the way people reacted to her. He had watched quietly from the edge of the gathering when she was turned away, and something about the moment had stayed with him. Now, seeing her alone in the fading light, he felt a quiet concern. "You all right?" he asked gently. Elena hesitated before answering. She had learned to be careful with strangers, but there was no judgment in his voice. "I'm fine," she said softly, though the words felt untrue. Daniel nodded slowly, as if understanding that fine could mean many things. He dismounted and leaned casually against the fence, keeping his distance so she would not feel pressured. "Town can be hard sometimes," he said after a moment. Elena let out a small breath.
"I guess so." Silence settled between them, but it felt calm rather than awkward.
The wind moved through the grass, creating a soft rustling sound. After a while, Daniel spoke again. "Have you eaten today?" The question caught her off guard. She considered lying but decided against it. "Not really."
He nodded once, as though confirming something he already suspected.
He did not ask for explanations or details about her past. Instead, he simply said, "Come with me." "Why?" He met her eyes with quiet sincerity. "Because you shouldn't sit out here hungry." She hesitated. Trust did not come easily anymore, yet something about his calm presence felt safe. He offered a small smile, gentle and steady. Then he said the words that would stay with her long after that moment. "You'll eat like a queen tonight." Those words were simple, but they carried warmth she had not felt in a long time. Elena felt something shift inside her. Not full hope yet, but the beginning of it. She stood slowly, unsure where this path would lead, but willing to take one more step forward.
Elena followed Daniel along a narrow dirt path that led away from the town.
The sky was painted with soft colors of evening, orange fading into purple, the first stars beginning to appear. The air felt cooler here, away from the noise and judgment of the town. Every step made her feel a little lighter, though the tension in her chest had not yet left. Daniel walked quietly beside her, carrying a small lantern that cast warm light around them. He did not ask her questions about her past, and she did not offer explanations. The silence was comfortable, a rare gift after the long day filled with stares and whispers. Elena kept her gaze on the path, trying not to imagine what awaited her. Part of her feared another disappointment. Finally, the dirt path opened into a clearing, and there it was, a modest ranch that seemed to glow in the soft twilight. A small wooden house stood in the middle, surrounded by fields, fences, and a few scattered barns. Smoke rose from a chimney carrying the scent of something cooking. Horses grazed nearby, calm and quiet in the fading light. The sight was almost magical, a world apart from the town she had just left behind. Daniel led her to the porch and gestured for her to step up. "Come on in," he said kindly. "It's warmer inside." Elena hesitated for a moment. She was not used to such welcome. People usually gave her food with suspicion, or they ignored her completely. Here no one questioned her. No one demanded proof or explanations. Something in Daniel's manner told her she could relax, at least a little. Inside, the house was simple but clean. Wooden furniture, a small kitchen, a few shelves lined with books and jars of supplies. The smell of food was stronger now, a mixture of bread, roasted vegetables, and something sweet baking in the oven. Elena's stomach tightened, both from hunger and from a feeling she had not known in a long time. Safety. Daniel moved to the kitchen, speaking softly so she would not feel rushed. "Sit wherever you like. Dinner will be ready soon." Elena chose a small chair near the window. She watched the last light of the day fade from the fields outside, feeling the tension in her body slowly ease. Her hands, which had been clenching the edges of her bag, relaxed in her lap. The meal Daniel prepared was simple, but it was made with care. Fresh bread, creamy soup, roasted vegetables, and a few slices of meat for flavor. Elena had not eaten properly in days, and the sight of the food made her mouth water. She hesitated before taking a bite, as if unsure she deserved it. Daniel noticed and gave her a reassuring smile. "Take your time. No one's rushing you here." Elena finally picked up a piece of bread and took a small bite. Warmth spread through her body as she chewed. It was not just the food. It was the feeling of being accepted, of being treated as a person and not a mistake. For the first time in days, she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a place in the world for her. As they ate, Daniel spoke lightly about the ranch, the horses, and the work that needed doing in the coming days. Elena listened quietly, occasionally asking questions. The conversation was easy, with no pressure, no judgment. She discovered she enjoyed talking about ordinary things again, simple topics that did not remind her of the pain she had endured. After dinner, Daniel suggested she rest for a while. He showed her a small guest room, with a bed covered in a quilt and a window looking out over the fields. Elena could hear the soft sounds of the ranch at night, the low murmur of horses, the rustle of wind in the trees, and the quiet hum of life continuing even after a hard day. She lay down on the bed, letting the warmth of the room wash over her. For the first time in a long while, Elena felt a sense of peace. She thought about the town, about the stares and whispers, about the shame she had carried like a heavy cloak. It still lingered, but for the first time it felt possible to set it down, even for a little while. The next morning the sun rose slowly over the fields, casting a golden glow on the barns and fences. Elena woke early, the soft light waking her naturally. She dressed quietly and made her way to the kitchen, where the smell of breakfast greeted her. Daniel was already there, preparing eggs and fresh bread. "Good morning," he said with a warm smile. "I hope you slept well." "I did," Elena replied softly, feeling the truth of her words. She had slept more deeply than she had in weeks, the exhaustion from worry and hunger finally giving way to rest. They ate breakfast together, talking about the work that needed to be done on the ranch. Daniel explained how he managed the fields, the animals, and the repairs around the property. Elena listened carefully, asking questions and offering ideas when she could. The work was simple, but it required attention and care, skills she had not used in a long time. Over the next few days, Elena began helping around the ranch. She learned how to feed the animals, water the crops, and care for the horses. The work was hard at first, but it gave her a sense of purpose that she had not felt in months. Each task completed, each small success, reminded her that she was capable and valued. Daniel watched her quietly as she worked. He noticed the way her hands moved with care, the way her eyes lit up when she accomplished something new. He did not praise her excessively, but his quiet approval gave her confidence. One afternoon, as Elena helped repair a fence, Daniel spoke up. "You've got a good touch with the animals. They seem to trust you right away." "I've always liked being around animals. They don't judge." "That's true," Daniel said, nodding. "And sometimes people need to remember that. Trust and kindness go a long way.
Elena thought about those words.
She had felt judged constantly, rejected and misunderstood by the town. Here, she was treated differently. Here, her efforts mattered, and her presence was respected. The difference was startling, and she felt a warmth in her chest that went beyond the physical comfort of food or shelter. As the days passed, Elena began to open up to Daniel in small ways. She shared stories of her childhood, the places she had lived, and the experiences that had brought her here. Daniel listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly heard. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Daniel and Elena sat on the porch, drinking tea. The sky was ablaze with color, and the air carried the scent of fresh grass and wildflowers. Elena felt a quiet gratitude for this moment, a moment of safety, of calm, of acceptance. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything. For not asking questions. For letting me just be here." Daniel nodded slowly. "Everyone deserves a chance, Elena. Sometimes it just takes one person to offer it." The words sank deep into her heart. For weeks she had carried the weight of shame and hunger, both physical and emotional. Now she felt the burden lift slightly, replaced by hope. She realized that kindness could change everything. A simple act, like sharing a meal, could restore dignity and faith in the world. Elena continued working on the ranch, learning more each day. The animals responded to her care, the land flourished under attention, and she began to feel a connection to this place she had not expected to find. Daniel remained a quiet guide, offering support without pressure, encouragement without demand. One morning as she helped bring in the horses from the pasture, Daniel approached her. "You've made this place better," he said simply. "Not just the work you do, but the way you care. It shows." Elena felt her chest swell with pride, but also humility. She had never imagined anyone could see her worth so clearly. The shame she had carried for so long began to lose its hold, replaced by a quiet strength she had forgotten she possessed. By the end of the week, Elena realized that the ranch had become a place of healing. The food, the work, the quiet kindness. All of it combined to create a space where she could begin again. She still carried her past, but it no longer defined her. Here, she had choices, purpose, and the simple but profound knowledge that she was valued. That night, as she lay in bed after a long day, Elena thought about Daniel's words. "You'll eat like a queen tonight." She smiled to herself, understanding that it was not just about the meal. It was about respect, dignity, and care. It was about being treated as a person, not a mistake. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of hope that was quiet but steady. She had been given a chance, and she intended to make the most of it. The journey was far from over, but the first steps toward healing had been taken, and that made all the difference. Elena drifted to sleep that night with a sense of peace she had not known in months, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring, knowing that she was no longer alone. The next morning, Elena woke to the soft light of the sun filtering through the window. The fields outside glimmered with dew, and the quiet sounds of the ranch, the low whinny of horses, the rustle of grass in the wind, greeted her like a gentle welcome. She stretched and felt a quiet determination rising within her. Each day at the ranch seemed to bring new tasks, new lessons, and a little more confidence she had not felt in months. After a quick breakfast, Daniel handed her a list of chores for the morning. Some were simple, like feeding the animals or collecting eggs, while others required more effort, like repairing a fence near the horse pasture. Elena welcomed the structure. It gave her a sense of purpose she had not felt in a long time. Each task completed made her feel stronger, more capable, and more connected to this place that had offered her refuge. While she worked, Daniel observed quietly, sometimes offering guidance, sometimes letting her figure things out on her own. It was a delicate balance of support and independence, and it helped Elena realize that she was trusted, which meant more than any words could express. She had spent so long being judged, pushed away, or ignored, that being relied upon felt almost foreign, but in a comforting way.
Mid-morning, Daniel approached her while she was tending to the horses.
"The fence along the east side needs repair," he said gently. Would you like to help me with it? Yes, I can do that. As they worked together, lifting posts and stretching wire, Daniel began to talk about life on the ranch, the challenges, the quiet rewards, the sense of freedom. Elena listened, absorbing every word, feeling a connection growing not just to the ranch, but to the man who had welcomed her without judgment. She began to notice small details about the ranch, the way the morning sun hit the hay bales, the smell of the fresh earth, the sound of the horses moving in the field. All of it seemed more vivid now that she was part of this world, even in a small way. After a few hours of hard work, they stopped for a short break under a large oak tree. Daniel handed her a cup of water and smiled. "You're doing well," he said simply. "I can see that this place suits you." Elena felt a flush of pride. Praise had been rare in her life lately, and it was a relief to hear it, especially from someone she respected. "Thank you," she said softly. I feel like I belong here, at least a little." Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Belonging is a strange thing," he said. "Sometimes it takes a while to find it, and sometimes it comes from the people who see you for who you really are." Elena looked at him, understanding the depth of his words. For weeks she had felt invisible or unwelcome, judged for things she could not change. Now she felt seen, not just as someone in need, but as someone capable and worthy of trust. As the day wore on, Elena continued with her tasks. She repaired fences, helped feed the animals, and even learned to groom the horses, finding satisfaction in each small accomplishment. The physical work was tiring, but it brought a sense of calm and focus that she had not experienced in a long time. With each task, she shed a little more of the shame and fear that had weighed her down in town. By late afternoon, the sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the fields. Elena paused to catch her breath and looked around. The ranch seemed peaceful, almost timeless, and she realized that she had begun to feel at home here, not just in the house or the fields, but within herself. The safety and acceptance she had found allowed her to breathe in a way she had forgotten was possible. Daniel joined her, carrying a bucket of water.
"I thought we could let the horses drink and then check the other side of the pasture," he suggested. Alan nodded, following him quietly.
As they moved together, a comfortable silence fell between them. Words were not always necessary. She felt that he understood without needing explanations, and that understanding was a balm to her spirit. She realized that this simple companionship, working side by side, sharing effort in quiet moments, was something she had missed deeply. After watering the horses, Daniel led Elena to the barn to check the equipment. Inside, the scent of hay mixed with the earthy smell of the animals. Elena picked up a broom and began cleaning, her movements steady and mindful. She realized that even in simple chores there was satisfaction, a rhythm, a purpose, a sense of contributing to something larger than herself. As the evening approached, Daniel began preparing dinner. The smell of cooking bread and vegetables filled the barn, and Elena felt her stomach rumble. This was not just nourishment. It was a symbol of care, of stability, and of a life being rebuilt. She watched him work, appreciating the quiet dignity of his routine, the calm focus he brought to each action. It reminded her that life could be ordinary and still meaningful, that small acts of effort and care mattered. Dinner was ready by the time the sun had fully set, painting the sky in deep shades of red and purple. They ate together at a small wooden table, the room warm and cozy. Elena savored each bite, not just because she was hungry, but because she knew the meal was made with intention and kindness. Daniel spoke softly about the plans for the coming days, discussing tasks and projects on the ranch. Elena listened and asked questions, eager to learn and contribute. After the meal, Daniel suggested a walk around the property. The night air was cool, carrying the scents of grass, earth, and distant flowers. The stars shone brightly overhead, and Elena felt a sense of wonder she had not felt in a long time. She realized that even after all she had endured, the world still held beauty and possibility. They walked slowly, talking about small, ordinary things, the patterns of the stars, the sounds of the night, the habits of the horses. It was a conversation without pressure, without judgment, and Elena felt a growing trust and comfort. She began to share small stories from her life, moments she had once thought insignificant, and Daniel listened attentively, offering thoughtful responses. For the first time, Elena felt that she could speak without fear of being mocked or dismissed. Her past, while still present in memory, no longer controlled her ability to connect with someone new. She felt a sense of freedom in that simple acceptance, and it strengthened her resolve to rebuild her life, piece by piece. Back inside the house, Elena helped Daniel tidy the kitchen. The tasks were simple, yet they brought a sense of collaboration and partnership. As they worked side by side, she realized that this was the first place in weeks where she felt part of something meaningful. The chores, the meals, the shared effort, all of it contributed to a growing sense of belonging and confidence. Later that night, as she prepared to sleep, Elena reflected on the past few days. The town had rejected her, left her hungry and ashamed. But here, on this ranch, she had been given warmth, nourishment, and respect. More than that, she had been given a chance to start over without judgment. She understood now that the act of kindness Daniel had shown her, a simple offer of a meal, a safe place to rest, was more powerful than she had realized. It had begun to restore her trust in people, her belief in her own worth, and her hope for the future. Elena lay in bed that night feeling exhaustion from the work and relief from the kindness surrounding her. She thought about the journey ahead, the continued work on the ranch, the lessons to learn, the challenges to face. And yet, for the first time in a long while, she felt ready. She was not just surviving, she was beginning to live again. Sleep came gently, wrapping her in a sense of peace she had not known in months. The stars outside her window seemed to shine just for her, marking the start of a new chapter. Elena understood that the journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken. The past would not be forgotten, but it no longer defined her. As she drifted into dreams, she felt gratitude, not just for the food or the roof over her head, but for the quiet courage of a man who had chosen to offer kindness when no one else would. That kindness had changed everything, and it had given her the strength to begin again. Tomorrow would bring new work, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow. But tonight she could rest, knowing she had found a place where she was valued, respected, and safe. For the first time in weeks, Elena felt a sense of hope that was steady, real, and powerful. The next morning, Elena woke early, the soft light of dawn spilling into the small guest room. The birds outside chirped cheerfully, and the distant lowing of cows reminded her that life on the ranch moved steadily, day by day. She dressed quickly and headed toward the kitchen, curious to see what Daniel was preparing for breakfast. Daniel smiled when he saw her enter. "Good morning," he said warmly. "I thought we'd start the day with some eggs and fresh bread." Elena's stomach rumbled at the sight and smell of the food. She had grown used to simple meals here, but they always felt more meaningful than anything she had eaten in weeks. Sitting down at the table, she realized that these moments of normalcy, sharing a meal, talking quietly, had begun to heal more than just her hunger. After breakfast, Daniel suggested they check the western pasture. The fence there had suffered some damage in recent storms, and it needed attention before the horses could safely graze. Elena nodded, grabbing gloves and tools from the small shed. She felt confident now, not just in her ability to help, but in her place on the ranch. As they worked together fixing posts and tightening wires, the rhythm of the labor was calming. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming their backs, and the smell of freshly turned earth mixed with the scent of wildflowers. Elena found herself thinking less about the shame and hunger she had endured, and more about the tangible progress they were making. Each post secured, each wire tightened, felt like a small victory. Daniel worked quietly beside her, occasionally offering guidance. "Make sure the post is straight," he said gently. "That way it holds better." Elena nodded, adjusting her work. She appreciated that he didn't take over the task or rush her. He trusted her to do it, and that trust meant more to her than words could express. By midday, the fence was secure and the horses could graze safely. Daniel suggested a short break, and they sat on the edge of the field, watching the animals move freely. Elena felt a quiet satisfaction in her chest. She had contributed something meaningful. She had helped ensure the safety of creatures that depended on her care. "You're learning quickly," Daniel said after a moment. "I'm impressed." "I'm just trying to do my best." He nodded, his gaze kind. "That's all anyone can ask for. Effort matters more than perfection." The afternoon brought new tasks. Daniel asked her to help with a small vegetable garden near the house. The garden had suffered neglect in the busy months prior, and it needed careful tending. Elena knelt in the soil, pulling weeds and checking plants. The smell of fresh earth and growing vegetables was grounding. She felt a sense of accomplishment as she cleared the garden rows, knowing her work would soon bear fruit, literally. As she worked, Daniel spoke quietly about life on the ranch, sharing memories of past seasons and lessons learned from the land. Elena listened closely, absorbing not just the practical knowledge, but the values behind it: patience, care, and respect for all living things. She realized that she was learning more than just chores. She was learning how to live in a way that was steady, meaningful, and connected to the world around her. Later in the afternoon, a sudden storm approached. Dark clouds rolled in quickly, and the wind picked up, rustling the fields and bending the trees. Daniel called the horses inside the barn, and Elena helped him secure the gates and check the fencing again. Her heart raced with urgency, but she felt capable. Together they worked efficiently, moving calmly through the tasks despite the approaching storm. Once the animals were safe, Daniel suggested they check the house and barn for any damage. The rain began to fall lightly, cool and steady. Elena helped carry tools and supplies back inside, grateful for the shelter and safety. Inside, the warmth of the house and the steady presence of Daniel made her feel secure in a way she had not in months. After the storm passed, they stepped outside to see the sun breaking through the clouds, casting rainbows across the fields. Elena paused to take in the view, the colors bright and hopeful. She realized that, just like the storm, the difficulties she had faced in her life were passing, and though she could not erase the past, she could rebuild her future, one careful step at a time. That evening, Daniel prepared a simple dinner and Elena helped set the table. The meal was modest: bread, roasted vegetables, and a small portion of meat, but it was shared with a sense of gratitude. They ate quietly, savoring both the food and the calm of the evening. Elena felt a deep appreciation for these moments of peace, realizing that they were slowly mending her spirit. After dinner, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge one by one in the clear night sky. The world felt vast and quiet, a sharp contrast to the harshness she had encountered in town. Elena thought about the people who had judged her, the hunger and humiliation she had endured, and yet she did not dwell on anger or bitterness. Instead, she focused on the kindness she had been shown here, on the trust and patience that Daniel had offered her. "You've done a lot this week," Daniel said softly. "Not just with the work, but with yourself. You've started to find your place here." I think I am," she admitted. "It's strange to feel like I belong somewhere after all I've been through. Belonging isn't always easy to find, but when it comes, it can change everything. You deserve to feel that." Elena looked out over the fields, the horses grazing quietly in the distance, and the soft glow of the house behind her. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of completeness. She was no longer defined by the past or by the judgments of strangers. Here, she had work, purpose, and acceptance. And she had a companion who offered respect without demand, care without conditions. The following days were filled with routine and small lessons. Elena continued her work in the garden, cared for the animals, and learned more about the ranch. Each day brought small victories, from fixing fences to learning the horses' habits. The physical work was tiring, but it gave her a sense of pride and accomplishment she had not known for a long time. During quiet moments, she and Daniel would talk about simple things: the weather, the crops, the habits of the animals. These conversations were unhurried, free from judgment, and they allowed Elena to slowly open her heart. She shared stories of her childhood, tales of past mistakes, and dreams she had once held. Daniel listened with patience and understanding, never interrupting or dismissing her. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, Elena realized that she had begun to feel a bond forming between them. It was not rushed or forced, but gentle and steady, built on trust, kindness, and shared experiences. She felt a quiet happiness she had not known for months, and the thought of losing it made her realize how much she valued this new life. Days turned into weeks, and Elena grew more confident in her abilities on the ranch. She could handle tasks on her own, care for the animals, and maintain the property with skill and care. More importantly, she began to feel that she had value, that her presence mattered. She no longer felt invisible or rejected. She had earned a place in this world, and it felt good to stand firmly within it. One afternoon, Daniel approached her while she was checking the garden. "You've made a big difference here," he said simply. "Not just with the work, but with the way you care. It shows." Elena smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "I'm glad to help," she said softly. "It feels good to matter somewhere." Daniel nodded. "It should. Everyone deserves to feel that way." Elena looked out at the fields, the horses grazing peacefully, the house warm behind her, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had been hungry, shamed, and rejected, yet here she was, surrounded by kindness and opportunity. She realized that her life could change, that she could build something meaningful for herself. And for the first time, she believed it was possible. That night, as she lay in bed, Elena reflected on the journey she had taken so far. She thought about the town, the harsh words, the hunger, and the loneliness. And she thought about Daniel, the quiet strength he offered, and the simple acts of care that had begun to restore her spirit. She understood that recovery was not instant, but with patience, effort, and kindness, healing could occur. She drifted to sleep with a sense of peace, her mind filled with hope for the future. The ranch had become more than a refuge. It had become a place where she could rebuild her life, find purpose, and learn to trust again. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new challenges, and new lessons. But for now, Elena allowed herself to rest, secure in the knowledge that she was no longer alone. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the windows of the small guest room. Elena woke with a sense of calm that she had not felt for many months. The past had been heavy with shame, hunger, and rejection, but here, on the ranch, she had discovered warmth, kindness, and trust. Each day had brought her closer to a sense of belonging she had long thought impossible. After dressing quickly, she went to the kitchen where Daniel was already preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and eggs filled the air. The simple ritual of a shared meal had become comforting, grounding her after weeks of uncertainty. "Good morning," Daniel said with a warm smile. "I hope you slept well."
"I did," Elena replied, her voice quiet but sincere. She felt stronger than she had in months.
"Thank you for everything." Daniel nodded, acknowledging her gratitude without making it a burden. He understood that true kindness did not require constant thanks. It simply existed, steady and patient. They ate in comfortable silence, the easy rhythm of the morning filling the kitchen. After breakfast, Daniel suggested they check the northern pastures. There had been a small leak in the fence, and it needed repair before the animals could roam freely. Elena nodded, grabbing her gloves and tools. She had grown skilled at these tasks, moving with confidence and care that impressed even Daniel. As they worked, Elena noticed how much she had changed in a short time. Tasks that had once seemed difficult or unfamiliar now felt natural. She moved with assurance, her mind focused, her body strong. The animals trusted her, responding calmly to her touch and voice. The land under her care seemed more alive, vibrant with energy. "Look at that," Daniel said after a moment, pointing to a foal grazing nearby. "See how calm it is around you?"
They know you mean well. Watching the young horse.
"It feels good," she said softly. "To be trusted." Daniel's eyes met hers, filled with quiet understanding. "You've earned it," he said. "Not everyone gets that chance. You did the work, and you've shown care." That matters. The day moved forward in steady rhythm. They repaired fences, checked the animals, and tended to the gardens. Each task brought satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment, and a reminder that Elena's life could be rebuilt one careful step at a time. She realized that she no longer feared the judgments of strangers or the harshness of the past. She had a place here, and she belonged. During a break in the afternoon, Elena and Daniel sat on the porch, watching the sun drift slowly across the fields. The sky was a brilliant shade of orange, fading to pink and purple at the horizon. The horses grazed quietly, and the wind rustled softly through the trees. Elena felt a deep sense of gratitude for this simple beauty, for the calm and safety that surrounded her. "You've changed a lot since you arrived," Daniel said, his voice gentle. "Not just in your skills, but in your confidence. I can see it." Elena looked down, feeling a warmth rise in her chest. "I never thought I could feel like this again," she admitted. "After everything that happened, I didn't think I'd ever feel safe or valued." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Life can be harsh," he said, "but sometimes it only takes one place, one person, or one chance to begin again. You've taken it, and you've made the most of it." Elena smiled, letting the words sink in. She realized that Daniel had been offering more than guidance or shelter. He had been giving her dignity, trust, and the opportunity to heal. Those gifts were priceless, and she understood that they were what had allowed her to grow stronger each day.
As evening approached, they returned to the house, and Daniel began preparing dinner.
Elena helped set the table, arranging plates and utensils with care. The meal was modest: roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and a small portion of meat, but it carried a sense of gratitude and completion that went beyond the food itself. Each bite felt like a reward for hard work, patience, and perseverance. After dinner, they sat together on the porch, enjoying the calm of the night. The stars glittered above, and the air carried the soft scents of grass and flowers. Elena thought about the journey she had taken, the hunger, the humiliation, the loneliness, and she realized how far she had come. "I can't believe how different things are now," she said softly. "I never imagined I could feel this peaceful." "It's not about imagining," he said. "It's about taking the chance to step forward. You did that, and you've made this place better too." Elena felt a deep sense of pride. She had contributed to the ranch, cared for the animals, and found a sense of purpose she had thought lost. But more than that, she had discovered something she had forgotten she could feel: trust. Trust in others, trust in herself, and trust in the possibility of a future that was not defined by shame or rejection. Over the next few weeks, Elena's life on the ranch settled into a steady rhythm. She learned to care for the horses with skill and confidence, tend to the gardens, and maintain the fences and buildings. Each day brought small successes, reinforcing her sense of belonging and self-worth. The quiet companionship with Daniel remained a steady presence, comforting and reassuring without pressure or expectation. One afternoon, as she repaired a section of fence, Daniel approached with a thoughtful expression. "I think it's time you consider something," he said gently. Elena looked up, curious. "What is it?" "You've grown strong, skilled, and confident," he said. "But there's a bigger world out there. Opportunities to use what you've learned, to build something lasting. Have you thought about what you want for the future?" Elena paused, considering his words. She realized that for the first time in months, she had a choice. She could leave the ranch to pursue work elsewhere, or she could continue to grow here, building a life in a place that had given her so much. The thought was both exciting and daunting.
I don't know," she admitted. "I've never felt this free to choose."
That's the point. Freedom to choose is rare, and it's worth thinking about. Whatever you decide, you have the skills, the confidence, and the heart to make it work. Elena smiled, feeling the weight of uncertainty lift slightly. She realized that she no longer needed to fear the past, the mistakes, the hunger, the humiliation. They had shaped her, but they did not define her. She had been given a chance to start again, and she could use it to build something meaningful. As the sun set, painting the fields with gold and purple, Elena felt a sense of completion. She had come a long way from the girl who had been shamed and sent away hungry. She had discovered strength, dignity, and hope. The kindness Daniel had shown her had transformed her life, giving her a foundation to rebuild upon. That evening after dinner, they sat together in quiet companionship. Elena thought about the meals shared, the work accomplished, and the lessons learned. She realized that life could be harsh, but it could also be gentle and rewarding when met with trust, care, and effort. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "It's not just about being fed or sheltered. It's about being seen, being valued, being trusted. That's what makes all the difference."
Daniel nodded. Exactly.
And you've shown that you can carry that forward not just here but anywhere. You have the strength to create a life you want. Elena felt tears welling in her eyes, not from sadness but from the depth of gratitude and relief. She had survived, learned, and grown stronger than she had imagined possible. The journey had been difficult, but it had brought her to a place where she could finally breathe, feel safe, and believe in herself. That night, as she lay in bed, Elena reflected on her journey. She thought about the town, the rejection, the hunger, and the shame. She thought about the kindness of a man who had offered her a simple meal and a safe place to rest. That act of care had begun a transformation, restoring her faith in humanity and herself. Elena drifted to sleep with a heart full of hope, knowing that tomorrow would bring new work, new challenges, and new opportunities to grow. She understood that life would not always be easy, but she now had the strength, skills, and courage to face it. She had been given a chance to start over, and she would embrace it fully. The ranch had become more than just a place to survive. It had become a home, a sanctuary, and a place of healing. Elena had discovered that even in the darkest times, kindness and trust could light a path forward. She had been shamed, sent away hungry, and left to face the world alone. But she had found a place where she was valued, respected, and safe. As the stars shone outside her window, Elena smiled softly. The journey was far from over, but she was ready. She had learned that small acts of kindness could change a life, that patience and care could rebuild trust, and that hope could be found even after the deepest hardship. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly at peace, knowing that she had the chance to live fully, freely, and with dignity. The world no longer seemed so harsh, and the future, once uncertain, now felt wide open and full of possibility. Elena had found her place, and she intended to honor it every single day.